Welcome to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex. Today we're taking a look at SIFU on the Nintendo Switch, a kung fu inspired beat 'em up, a roguelike. It's a game I loved on PS5, but I'm here to take a look at how this port stands up and whether it's worth your cash. That's going to cover story, gameplay, graphics, frame rate and audio. So with that, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews and deals daily, and let's get started. Consider using cornershop.gg for discounted eShop credit. You'll be getting 10% off at checkout using the code CORNER, and that's going to be instant delivery via email. SIFU, it tells the story of a young warrior who in the opening moments of the game witnesses the murder of his father, and what follows now basically years of training, or at least that is until age 20, where we take control, and we've now compiled a list of who was involved and who we must slay for revenge. This story often crosses over with themes of almost supernatural, or at least in the idea of resurrection, and it also tries to question the ideas of vengeance. It's not particularly deep stuff, honestly, and I see a huge amount of opportunity to make this narrative something special, but it gives us enough reason to get out here and slay. It also packs then 3 endings dependent on decisions and actions you take throughout the main story. SIFU then, it's an incredibly clever roguelike in its progression system, which is packed full of skill trees and unlockables. Most unique of it all, though, is its death system. You know, like most in the genre, here we actually get a choice when we are taken to the ground, either accept death or lose or progress or age. In aging, this has 2 impacts. The older we get, the smaller our health bar becomes, but also at the same time it's the stronger we become, so it creates this balance. Our first death, though, we lose 1 year, now age 21, but with each death it's going to double, so think 1 year, then 2, then 4, then 8, and so on. Once we hit any number above the age of 70, it is truly game over and we are kicked back to our home. This then ties into a couple of skill trees as well, that being a more traditional moves list, which is unlocked with XP gained throughout your adventure, and then another that is character attributes such as health, weapon handling, or even you'll claim some of those years lost back. This, it's unlocked via statues scattered around each level, and they're actually tied to your age and level, so think if you're above the age of 30, some skills, some options, they will no longer be available. The unlocked moves as well in here, initially these are unlocked simply for that one run, but if you do contribute 5 times the required XP, then it will unlock permanently, and that would be my recommended strategy. Do a quick run, work out what you like, and then focus on permanent unlocks, as that way you'll basically be getting closer and closer to the end game. My favourite moves personally was the leg sweep, so I could pummel enemies on the ground. If you do die as well, I do know this is not a roguelike in the sense it's never back to the very beginning of the game. It is 5 levels with 5 bosses, and once completed, let's say you're age 30 after level 1, that's where you will start the next level. Die and both levels, though, are still available. It never wipes everything except for temporary moves, a level score, and gained XP. That's really, though, where the grind comes in as well. As you learn, expect to actually replay levels. You'll want to finish each as young as possible, but also you'll want to be kind of like farming XP so you can unlock new moves. Basically, though, that's going to be because, well, understandably so, the further into the game you get, the more progressively challenging it becomes. There's also other reasons to replay levels as well, although each level, you know, it packs secrets. It's actually detailed on a collectible board, but it will allow items such as shortcuts to open. An example, on level 3 you'll find a keycard towards the end game. These things we actually keep in death, and that's going to give you now an instant path directly to the boss of the museum. It's a great find, it's rewarding for your perseverance, and yeah, just generally, you know, now you've got a much better chance of getting out of this stage at a much younger age. All important combat then, and this is where truly SIFU for me succeeds. Its love for Kung Fu translates perfectly to gaming thanks to what is an incredibly well done combo driven control scheme that's still easy to pick up but of course difficult to master. We have in here a light attack, a heavy attack we can block, and we can parry. We also choose with the right stick whether we are blocking high or low. These moves all single input, while unlocks definitely push us into more simplistic combos. We can practice moves, however, at our home, and I would strongly suggest it, and I'd get used to using environmental objects such as items you can kick at enemies to take them down, or weapons, the latter probably one of the most important aspects of the game if you want to make any sort of dent on progression. You can also then remap controls as you please. Alongside this then we do get the focus abilities as well. We build this meter in the lower left of the screen by blocking, parrying as well as attacking, and these are also incredibly important, especially true for boss encounters. My favourite here was a leg sweep, mainly because it gives you a few moments to simply catch your breath while they get themselves back into position. Also, you'll notice a yellow bar above your health. This is called a structure. Essentially, we feel this or our enemies, and we are now open to huge, often life-ending attack windows. The only other real controls to mention, we can use execution moves, X and Y together. Once an enemy's health is low, it flashes on screen. We can scale objects and we can sprint. But yeah, mastering this control scheme, it's been a pleasure, and I'm still far from how good you could be. Enemy attack patterns are creative though, a nice mix of high and low attacks, but expecting to hear patterns of course. That's really one of the main keys to success here, spotting what's coming next. And then the 5 boss encounters, incredibly challenging with some absolutely devastating attacks. A pain point for me and both a highlight in fact, but that was the museum boss, a twin-bladed warrior, just brutal. I repeated it a huge amount of times trying to keep my age down, eventually got there, but again it's a game, it rewards perseverance. I really don't have a huge amount of complaints with this one, gameplay wise. Towards the end game I did get a bit of burnout on some of the enemies as they do repeat, or at least an attack pattern with a skin swap, and just occasionally frustration can play a factor as you'll try to pull off a move in a crowd and it targets the incorrect enemy. Finally, if you are concerned with difficulty here, do know it now packs 3 difficulty options. I don't believe that was available when I played initially on PS5, but we get the core normal experience, now a harder variation then, which I won't be touching for a long time, and then easy, and the latter still not easy by a long shot, but aging is now only 1 year at a time, enemies are simplified, and your health bar is now massive. I tried it though, and the bosses where I did jump in, they still took me down a couple of times. One thing I did learn here though, do know this going in, if you do change it during a run, if let's say you go from normal to easy mid-run, you'd actually now be locked into that difficulty. If you wanted to go back from easy to normal, you'd have to start a whole new session. Yeah, so basically this is movement down in difficulty only and not up. Frame rate then, and here the team have advised me they are working to roll out a day 1 patch that will fix some minor bugs and performance issues that they've noted as well. Their target here is 30 frames per second, and yeah, they are still working on a few specific cases and situations. They've been completely transparent about that. I naturally did not have access to this day 1 patch though, so I can only speak to my experience with this build. For me, that experience, there's drops, but I wouldn't describe them as frequent to memory. I can only note one that occurred during combat, which is where you would really be concerned, and that's mainly because honestly, I just sprinted into war as the footage in the background is showing. I kind of wanted to push the game to its limits. It seems though mainly linked to moving between rooms and areas in stages, as it no doubt, it's loading in additional assets. It was particularly noticeable, however, on the first stage, which has a higher amount of detail than most in its environments, and yeah, from that point onwards, it definitely calmed down. Right now though, I'd describe it as mostly sitting around 30, occasionally wobbles to like 28, 29, which honestly, the action's so fast you'll rarely notice, and I had one instance that was particularly rough as I transitioned rooms where it dropped to 20 for a few seconds. That was the aforementioned combat sequence. Thankfully, a very simple enemy didn't do any damage to my character. It didn't impact the overall experience though, and hopefully this is all a part of that day 1 cleanup. Either way though, as it stands, what I played, I completed the full game to that last boss and I really enjoyed it. Just know, 30 frames per second versus the 60 that we have on current gen, it's naturally going to impact the feel of the combat and the responsiveness of that gameplay as well. I will update though in the pinned comment once the day 1 patch is live, so do please take a look there so I can kind of give you an update on this section of the video. Graphically then, this is a unique one. It has moments that are stunning. There's a really nice artistic design behind the whole experience, and some of the locations are epic in scale. The museum is a particular highlight as it definitely gets creative. That said though, we seem to be working with a responsive resolution, because on occasion you will spot some major pixelation, some major drops. This must have been a way of keeping frame rate stable, but yeah, there's a few moments I actually suspect at near 480p, though again I will warn here, like, they're few and far between and very tiny instances. Overall though, again, like, it's got a few issues, but I was impressed. Each location is unique, the enemies are a little repetitive at times, but still a sizable cast. The boss encounters are really creative visually. We have a few moments where the camera gets all cinematic, it even goes side on, which feels like a love letter to Old Boy as you battle down a corridor. And then handheld, I played through the first level to test it out. I thought it looked good. Naturally though, it sharpens up the image on offer thanks to that smaller screen. The best highlight though of this game in regards to its visuals by far are Lee's animations. The Kung Fu looks absolutely incredible. Audio finally, it's decent. There's voice acting that's mostly good quality for the minimal of moments that are narrative, and the music, it's in keeping with the Kung Fu theme, while also building upon the tension and the locations on offer. The highlight though, the combat, it feels heavy already, but the sound design absolutely reinforces that as you crush your enemies. I loved every moment of the combat audio though, and the weapons, they are particularly brutal. SIFU then, it's a gem of a game, and while this is not the best version of the game out there, even pre, day one patch, I think it's respectable. The combat has always felt fantastic, and yeah, playing it, it's just a highlight as, they've managed to pull in some large locations and unique visual design. They've essentially given us a port that feels scaled back somewhat, but it's not at the cost of the game's personality. Throw in then though the incredibly unique progression system, some challenging boss encounters, and an aging system that I don't believe has ever been done before, and yeah, this is getting a recommendation from me. A great 8 out of 10 then today from me, and as I said, once the day one patch is live, I'll update you all in the pinned comment down below of how it impacts those slight frame rate drops, especially for that first level. With that then, like, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews and deals daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.